Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hashnode Bootcamp on Technical Writing. This is session number 6. Hope you are all fine writing blogs and everything, doing your task. I would like to remind you that you have some active tasks still from the previous sessions, and you have to submit them on time in order to get this bootcamp certification. So yeah, a little bit work for you. It's end of the week. It's Friday. So yeah, hopefully you have still energy. So yeah, let's start this session. I will briefly introduce our guest. It's Anna McDougall. It's interesting. She is a former opera singer and now is also web developer and learning all of these things. She's very active at the tech Twitter, and as she say, she's falling every day, but the important part is she is learning a lot from each of that fail. She's also doing playing these card games. As I saw, I don't usually do. I played one or two, but I think it's worth mentioning just to diversify a little bit the announcement. But what I wanted to say, I remember I think I met Anna on Twitter. I mean, I spotted with the blog that actually was pretty much amazing. Is don't say sorry, so don't say thank you instead. I will put a link on that. I think it's pretty much powerful, and with a tiny little, let's say, life hack, you can improve your the way how you communicate with others, and also how other can treat you. So yeah, hi Anna, welcome. I'm glad that you are here. I won't talk too much, so I won't steal any more of your time. Feel free to start whenever you like.
Yeah, but before I begin, thank you so much, Bruno. I'm really excited to be here. Bruno and I were talking before the session, and I was saying, I've given presentations before, but never in the tech space. So I'm super excited to be here and to share what I know with you guys. And I just hope that that basically you can take away something useful today. So that's the goal. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. This is where the tech problems can happen. Let's try it. Okay, and then we're going to do this bad boy here. All right. So hopefully everything's working and you guys can see what I see. If I press, no, I don't want to press that. Do I want to press that? I don't think I want to press that. Okay, so here we go. We're going to talk about getting started in blogging. I'm going to talk about two things: writing principles and topic selection. Actually, with slightly more of a focus on topic selection. So we're actually going to begin there. But before we do, I think it's important to say a little bit about who I am. Bruno already gave a little introduction. I'm not going to read through this list, but the basic gist of it is that I've done a lot of different things in my life. I actually majored in journalism at university. And although I did start coding at a very young age, I never pursued it career-wise until quite recently. And in between pursuing it career-wise and completing my journalism degree, I was indeed an opera singer. I completed my Masters of Music and I moved to Germany for that reason. You can probably hear I am not German, I am Australian. So I moved to Germany to be an opera singer. I successfully did that for many years, and now I'm completing my accreditation in web development. So that's a 1-year course. I'm about halfway through now. Randomly, I'm also a certified powerlifting coach. So if you need help on your squats or deadlifts, call me. But basically, I share all of this with you for a reason, because I want to ask the question, what does all of this weird mix of things mean about me as a person? What it means is that I'm really good at learning. I'm really good at learning lots of different things. I'm also really hard to put in a box. And so I want to share with you what I know about learning. What is the key to learning? And I want to come to this because I feel like this is what drives a lot of us, especially as developers and as people in tech. We usually are the kind of people who love learning, who love discovering new things. So let's talk about it. Talking it through with others, teaching others, testing yourself, and asking questions. To me, these are the 4 keys to learning. I mean, we could talk about that alone for half an hour, but let's keep moving, because there's something about these that makes me think of, oh yeah, blogging. That's what blogging is, right? Let's go back a second. Talking it through with others, teaching others, testing yourself and asking questions. It's a very public way of doing a lot of these things, but that is blogging. So how do you start by blogging? Now, I understand that's really what you're here for, right? That's what a lot of this bootcamp is about. So let's expand on that. How do you find things to talk about? Today, what I want you to do is either with a notepad or a pen and paper document, whatever you like, I want you to create a list of your first 6 blog posts. And if you've already done some blog posts, then let's say your next 6 blog posts, because we're going to go through 6 different areas where you can draw topics from. A few things before we begin. I know a lot of people like to go down the road of having a niche, especially in tech. I would advise you, if you're early in your blogging career, not to go too niche too early. It's a really good idea to explore different topics, get a feel for how you write, what you like writing about, and kind of expand your horizons a little bit before you decide on a niche. Also, I think you've probably heard this a lot this week, but you are an expert compared to someone. Never ever doubt that you have something to share. Every single person watching this has something to share and to offer this community. And more specifically, you have something unique to offer. Maybe a certain way that you would phrase something would be the thing that gets through to a beginner. Maybe, I don't know, you want to write about closure and lots of people can't quite get their head around it, and then you just happen to phrase it a certain way. That could be the thing that clicks. Everyone has a different way of conceiving of ideas. And so you and your way of conceiving ideas can be the thing that helps someone. So you definitely have something unique to offer. You are an expert compared to someone, and don't focus too niche too early. So before we get into the thick of it, that's what I just wanted to offer you, because I feel like it's really important that you come in with confidence and that you feel capable and worthwhile before you begin blogging. So let's start about the first topic area. This is the easiest one to write about in the whole world because no one knows you better than you. You can write about this topic and you are definitely an expert in it, right? You've been your own roommate for your whole life. So I'm assuming that's decades. So you got this. So here are some questions to ask yourself. And I want you to, again, write down a topic that you feel like you could talk about in this space. What is your story? What got you started in technology, perhaps? Or maybe you want to go, how did you land your last job? What's a trend that interests you and why? Something that I feel like is always a good topic to talk about is why you're passionate about a certain technology, right? People love to see other people's enthusiasm. Bruno said earlier, let's hope that you can have some energy for the rest of the week. I feel like they've scheduled me perfectly because energy is one thing I can definitely bring you. And I know that you have something that you can bring energy to. And if there's a topic like that, tell us why. Tell us why you're passionate about that. What is it? What makes you tick in that way? So the pros about writing about yourself are, of course, it's easy to write about. It's also a good reference for later. I've written 2 pieces about my own background with technology. I often link to them on LinkedIn. It's something that recruiters have read. Even though I'm not looking for a job yet, it is something really good to have under your belt. So I really strongly encourage you to do that. Of course, the cons are not that many people actually want to read your life story. So, you can't expect huge numbers to be reading that. Okay, second topic area. I hope you've got one for the first one, okay? Going to keep you on your toes here. The second topic area is career and work, right? What hiring trends do you notice? What are some interview questions you get asked? Or are there some issues with work culture, which you have ideas how to solve? So career and work has a lot of interest around it, obviously, especially now in Corona times where there are so many people who are looking for work. Any tips you have? How did you get the job you got right now? Or how are you trying to get a job right now? What steps are you taking? What are some common interview questions you get asked? Or maybe even just one. I mean, you could write a whole blog post on FizzBuzz. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of content. I think the idea is you find one key thing that people are interested about, and then you can explore that topic. Alternatively, as I mentioned, there are things about work culture. Bruno mentioned a piece of mine, which is about not saying sorry or replacing sorry with thank you in the workplace. And that is something that really gets at an issue that I see all the time in many different workplaces where people are constantly apologizing for whatever, for everything. So you can have a look at your own workplace or think back on workplaces you've been at and think about what are some problems people face? How could you potentially solve them? There's a lot of interest in this area, of course, and it's relevant to most developers. The downside is you do have to be careful with proprietary information. If you are working for a company right now, you obviously can't share anything that is confidential. So you do have to be a little bit careful in that regard. And I would also caution against writing stories about your colleagues where it's too obvious, a bit too obvious who is who, if you know what I mean. Assume they're going to read it. Let's move on. So that's number 2. I hope you've got a topic for that one. Interpersonal skills. These kind of feeds into that career and work thing as well for the social aspect. What are some common social problems you see? And the second point I think here is actually key. What are people insecure about? Imposter syndrome is something that almost every blogger has written about at some point. If you have special thoughts on it, I feel like it's a great place to start because it kind of taps into this core insecurity that people have. Am I good enough? Will I be good enough? Will I be accepted? You know, these insecurities, they're things that people need to hear reassuring words about. They need to be able to explore those emotions. And you probably have an opinion about them. So have a think about what makes people tick. And really, I guess that's an area that you can really explore as well. This third one is actually one of the most useful ones as well. Is there a piece of advice which has helped you a lot personally? Think about your parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, teachers, speakers, whoever. Is there a piece of advice that they have given you where you have said, oh, wow, that really changes how I see things? And if there is, write about that. That is something that is so useful. If it helped you, it will probably help other people. And if it will help other people, it will spread. So, the pros here is that it can bring a lot of good and has universal appeal. These kinds of topics often get shared a lot on social media if that's something that's important to you. However, of course, it can be difficult to tie into tech specifically. I have spoken about topics that are, how to give good compliments, for example, is one of my posts. Not necessarily specific to tech, but nevertheless something that is a useful skill to have. So I'd like you to just take a second here, get a bit zen and think like, what is a problem, a social problem that you or a friend or a colleague has experienced, and what is a piece of advice that you've given them, and is that piece of advice applicable to a more universal context? And if so, write about it. Yeah, I think that's you can really do some good here. So I really encourage you to think about that. Sorry guys, there are 6 areas. It's not the last area. The 4th area is technology itself. Of course, this is something that you guys should know through and through. It is your technology, your stack, whatever you like to code with or a software you like to use, anything like that. Tell us about it. Why are you passionate about it? Case studies. How did you write your side project? If you can talk about something you've done at work proprietarily, write about that. Tell us about it. How did you solve a certain problem? For me, as someone who is newer to coding, I would like to know what the work process is. When you're given a task at work, how do you go about solving it? What steps do you take to solve those problems? That is useful information to people who are newer to coding. On the flip side, what are some common missteps? What's a problem you often see in coding? Are people's naming conventions really terrible? Are people, switching formatting or not sticking to certain formatting rules that you think they should? Talk about it. Or maybe you see people using .map wrong and you want them to use a different method instead. It can be anything, but really go back to basics. Yeah, go down into the nitty gritty. One of my earliest blog posts was about the difference between class and ID in HTML and CSS. It's that simple. Newbies, people who are new to coding, they don't necessarily understand some of the differences, the why of things. Yeah, they can see that ID and class had different properties, but they don't know why. Why would I use one versus the other? They both work with CSS styling. this is something that you can help with. So really think about when you were starting to code, what was an area that you got stuck on? And that could be something that you can talk about. So of course, the pros here is that there is an endless amount to talk about when it comes to technology itself. It's also a great resource to refer back to. There are things, for example, I did a blog post about Git and GitHub. I still refer to that frequently throughout the week to newbies who are struggling with these things. So it's a great resource to refer back to. Of course, any one topic will have a limited audience. That is, of course, the downside. And of course here, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the KISS principle. I think probably most of you know it already, but it stands for keep it simple, stupid. And it basically means don't try to be too complex. Don't try to be too clever, especially when you're starting out with blogging. Stick to things that you know or you are getting close to knowing, and use blogging as a way to share those things. Topic area number 5, trends and predictions. What is something new in your area that excites you? What is a technology, a product, or a trend you've noticed people using more frequently? Or what do you think is the next big thing? I was also thinking about this topic earlier today, and I thought you could also do a post along the lines of what I intend to learn in 2021. And I don't mind if you steal that. You can write that down if you like. And you could actually commit to learning a certain technology. And in your blog post, you would talk about why. Why do you want to learn that particular technology or that particular language or that particular piece of software, anything? And presumably it's because you think it's becoming more relevant or it's going to become relevant to your work. So write about that. The pros is that there's a lot of interest in this kind of thing. Everyone wants to know what the next big thing is. Everyone wants to have their finger on the pulse. Excuse me. The downside is that you can be wrong. You could be like, oh, I think that next year everyone is going to do front-end development in C++, definitely. And you could be very, very wrong. So it's a downside. But the good thing is, by the time you're wrong, probably most people won't remember that you're wrong. So don't worry too much about that. The 6th topic area, and I'm sorry, I know I'm rollicking through this, but we've got so much to get through, and I'm so excited to get this information out to you guys, are reviews and write-ups. So lucky for you guys, this topic is actually perfect for what we're doing right now, because you're attending the Hashnode Bootcamp, and a review or a write-up could include a review of an event that you attend. Oh, amazing. So here we are, and you can actually write about this event. What did you like? What would you like to see more of? What could be done better? These are all topics you can talk about, and whether Hashnode likes it or not, you should definitely include constructive criticism because it'll make it better for next time. Have you read a book lately about technology? Maybe you want to go that direction instead. Or maybe you've done a course on Udemy, Coursera, Free Code Camp. The Odin Project is one I'm very passionate about. Have you done those courses? Have you done a course in those? What did you like about it? Write about it. Yeah. Encourage people to try it out or not. It doesn't have to be glowing. It can be negative if you really want it to. The good thing about writing reviews is that it's easy to write about, right? It's just your opinion. There's no wrong answer. You can't be like, oh, I didn't like that speaker, Anna McDougall. She was way too bubbly and it was Friday and I just wanted to chill out. I can't tell you you're wrong. Right? It's your opinion. So it's easy to write about. The cons are there is limited interest, right? Not everyone wants to know about your thoughts about everything. But nevertheless, I still strongly encourage you to pursue that area. So that's 6 topic areas. Let's have a look at that. Whew, we're going like a freight train, everyone. What to write about. So yourself, career and work, interpersonal skills, technology you use, trends and predictions, reviews and write-ups. These are 6 different areas, and I hope by now you've got an idea for each of them, right? Maybe some clearer than others about what you would like to write about in that space. But I hope, because that will give you 6 pieces. And if you're writing, let's say, 1 blog post a week, you would therefore have 6 weeks worth of blog posts right there. And that's with only 1 topic chosen per topic area. So I want to just give you a few hints and tips first. this is something I love doing, and it's so useful. Whenever you have an idea about what you want to write about, just click like write a draft or create a draft, and then you put in the title the topic that you're going to talk about, and you just save draft, exit. Okay. Then when you actually have the time to write, you can just open up your list of draft posts, and there you will have, in my case, something like 8 to 9 different post ideas, blog ideas right there in your draft post list, and you just choose whichever one you feel like writing about that day, and bada bing, bada boom, you have yourself a blog post. It's a great way to do it because you're not always going to be able to think of something in the moment that you want to write about, and this way you kind of externalize that information into a list that is easily accessible in the moment that you want to blog. The other thing I would say, aside from thinking about these topic areas that I've talked about, is notice the conversations happening around you. This is one of the reasons why I love Twitter. You will see I'm very, very active on Twitter. Follow me at Anna J. McDougall. But notice what people are talking about. What are the problems that they're talking about? What are the solutions they're talking about? What are some points of controversy or some points of conflict? These are things people want to talk about, and if they want to talk about it, they probably want to read about it. As I said before, keep it simple. And if in doubt, break it down into a smaller topic. If you find that you're writing and it's getting to be like a PhD, just decide to pull something out of that and write about it that way. A common thing to do, of course, are like top 5 or top 10 posts. If you're doing a top 5 of something and you find that one of these topics is like 1 out of the 5 is becoming really long, that's your hint, that's your clue that you should be writing about that separately. So that would be one other thing that I just want to mention before we move on to the next topic, because now you have 6 ideas for what you want to write about. The next question is, of course, how do you actually write it? You've got these ideas and now you're like, okay, what are we going to do? The very first thing you should be doing is creating a structure. It is very, 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 very tempting to just start writing, right? You're like, oh, I know this area, class and ID and HTML, easy, wah, 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 wah. Type, type, type. Okay, you can do that. But what happens is that it ends up lacking direction. Yeah, you can feel very wishy-washy. Maybe you end up saying a personal anecdote that goes for 3 paragraphs and then the actual information's only 2 sentences long and it looks weird and people can't follow it. I would strongly recommend you to structure your pieces. And here's an example here that I've just kind of taken from my piece about delivering compliments. So hang on, I'll just use a little pointer here. So first, you start with the introduction, why deliver compliments. And I had a little anecdote here about my friend Zach. Then I broke it down into more questions that ended up being subheadings. Why don't people do this? And I talk about doom and gloom, because, you never know when the last time you're going to see someone is. Like, we should do this. When do you do it? Yeah, when are compliments relevant? How does this tie into professionalism? And then, of course, how do you do it? How do you deliver a compliment? You open, you tell them a true impression about them, you relate it to an experience, then you close. And then the conclusion, which was some homework or tasks for people to do. So it's very, very straightforward. It doesn't have to be complex. As you can see, my structure is like that. But I strongly recommend you always write a structure before you write your first full sentence, because there are 2 types of writers. There are those who could write forever. They could just go on and on and on and on and on. Yeah. And then there are those who really struggle to write, who are sitting there going, I just don't know. What do I start with? Where am I going? And structure helps both of these types of writers. On the one hand, if you're like me and you could just write eternally, structure keeps you on track. It stops you from rambling or getting off topic or shifting into a different topic, because you can see in your structure, okay, I'm talking about this now, but soon so let's say I'm talking about why don't people do this now, but soon I'm going to be talking about when to do this. Yeah. So you know that this next topic is coming up and you can think in that direction, and it gives movement to your piece. Yeah, it keeps you moving in the right direction and makes sure that you don't get off track. But on the other hand, if you're someone who struggles to write and doesn't find it easy, structure gives you something to lean on when you get stuck. You write a few sentences about why people don't do this, and then you think, oh God, what am I going to write about next? And if you don't have a structure, you might end up just deciding, oh, this is too hard, I'm just going to stop. But by structuring it, you've already done the hard work in advance. You already know in advance exactly what you're going to say. And if you get stuck, you just move on to the next topic. You just move on to the next part of your structure. So it allows you to keep going, both from a rambler's perspective and from the perspective of someone who struggles to get something out. Because blog posts don't have to be long. So a structure can help anyone, right? If you can only get 2 sentences out about one of your dot points, you just move on to the next dot point. No problem. Keep going. Like, just get it out, and you can always edit it later if you think you need to add more. Okay, this is a kind of more grammatical thing, and I'm hoping that maybe you've heard about this before. If not, I strongly encourage you to Google it. It's a very nuanced area, but it's called active voice versus passive voice. So the passive form is where you use a conjugation of to be with a past participle. And if you know English grammar, that will seem quite straightforward to you. If you don't, please stick with me. So here are some examples of the passive voice. React is loved by developers. The code was written by my colleague, Bob. This idea was given to me by my teacher. This is loved, was written, was given. These are examples of the passive voice. Ideally, you want to use the active voice, right? Developers love React. Boom, boom, done. Yeah, that is an active freaking sentence right there. It hits a lot harder and it sounds better. My colleague Bob, there we go. My colleague Bob wrote the code. Doom, done. My teacher gave me this idea. Yeah, these are active sentences. There's no was given to me by, this was done, this is doing, this is done, is was. It's the passive voice sounds neutral, and that can be a good thing. Like I said, there is some nuance to this area. It's not always as simple as this, but generally speaking, you want things to sound active and involved. The next thing is a huge one, and it's we and us. A lot of people, especially when writing tutorials, will use you. Next, what you will do is you will, so here, like for example, next you want to enter your variables within the scope of your function. I get it. You feel like you want to be talking directly to your reader, but what we want to do is actually say, we want to enter our variables within the scope of our function. This sounds like a community. It sounds like you're building part of this up with them, right? This is both of your problem. This is both of your challenge, and you're in it. You're there with them. I would strongly, strongly encourage you to try to eliminate you and your from as many of your blog posts as you can. It is really hard to do, and I catch myself doing it all the time. In fact, I hesitated to put this slide in because I thought to myself, if anyone from this course actually goes and reads some of my blog posts, they will see me making this mistake multiple times because I still fall into this trap. So it is hard to stop yourself from doing, but it's definitely something we want to do. So yeah, as I said, the effects of familiarity, togetherness, and being on the same level. Okay, and then the last thing here is this idea of having external tools and add-ons. You don't have to go at this alone, and I'm especially talking to people here for whom English is not the first language. There is a great extension you can get, a great add-on you can get to your browser from Grammarly that can catch common grammatical mistakes. I will say, despite me setting it to UK English, it does normally change things to American English. So if that is important to you, then just be aware of that. However, if you don't mind, then that is a really good add-on to have. Another thing is using the thesaurus or the thesaurus. This could be an add-on, but it could also be something you just look up from time to time. It can help you expand your vocabulary. That said, I have also recommended here to use a site called Lingui, which is used for a lot of translators, and also Twitter. Now, the reason I say this is because if you're finding new words using the thesaurus, then it is really important that you understand how those words are used, because sometimes some words have connotations or they sound particularly odd in English. They might be really old-fashioned and they don't actually mean exactly what the thesaurus says it means. So I recommend using things like Lingui and like Twitter and just enter whatever the word is in, whichever new word you want to use in, and see how other people use it in context. This is something that's been really helpful for me learning German, is actually just searching new words on Twitter and seeing how people use them in conversation. And the last thing is I'm using Google Slides for this presentation, and I strongly recommend that you investigate Google Slides, because this great thing, I mean, PowerPoint can do it as well if you prefer PowerPoint or any similar presentation-based software, because they often have these templates, and you can kind of alter the templates to create preview images for yourself. So I've created this little template, as you can see in the bottom right here, which has some, horizontal lines, and then a little, computer tablet thing in the side, and then my tag, Anna J. McDougall, in the corner. And every time I write a blog post, I change the colors around a bit, and then I edit the text, and then I save as JPEG from Google Slides, and then I have a new preview image for my blog post. And I use that for the blog post itself. If you're reposting on any other platforms, you can also use it there. If you are posting on LinkedIn, you could use it there. Twitter, it's also very useful. So I strongly recommend doing that as well. So, I know that I just blasted you with a lot of information, but I want to give you guys a task now. So you should have, as I said before, 6 kind of ideas. It might be a bit fuzzy, but 6 kind of ideas about what you want to write about in the text space. So I'm going to give you a task, and that is that in the next 7 days, I want you to write a blog post about one of those topics. Yeah, one of them. And I might be a little bit biased here, but if you haven't yet written a blog post about you and your story and how you got into tech and why you're passionate about it, I strongly recommend that's where you start. But it's really up to you. I can't control you. So here are some things though. You need to write a structure first. It should be less than 300 words. I want to see no you, only us and we. I want to see as little passive voice as possible. As I mentioned earlier, there are some use cases for passive voice, so I don't want to be like no passive voice. Just try to avoid it. Try to catch yourself when you're using it. And I also want you to try to use 3 words that you didn't know before, right? Okay, especially actually for the native English speakers, I particularly want you to do this because I think we get really lazy. And then, and this is kind of just a me thing, I want you to tweet them if you have Twitter and @ me so I can see your beautiful creations, because I would love to see what you guys have come up with. And I think now that I've just whacked you with information and a whole ton of energy, I think that's kind of it from me, and I'm happy to take questions, and add me on Twitter. So yeah.
Yeah, great session, really packed up with a lot of energy, and the participant felt it, I think. So because I saw some of those comments, and really positive comments and vibes. So okay, off to the questions. Let me just check it. Let's just start with reading because this is a longer one. I thought it's a shorter one so I can improvise something. So in topic number 4, you mentioned very scoped topics. Are you recommending very short articles instead of long and deep ones? And so, for example, the CSS class versus ID. So you are suggesting microblogging?
I wouldn't call it microblogging, but I'd say there's nothing wrong with having a range of blog post lengths in your blog. I think there are times to go really long and detailed, especially with things like tutorials. Of course, it's kind of hard to avoid. But I do think there's a place for really short and simple explanations, especially if you are able to explain it in a different way. So if you're just going to take an example off like W3 Schools or MDN Docs and just replicate that same example in your blog, there's no point. Like, don't do it. But if there's a different example that helped you when you were learning and it only takes, 300, 400 words to explain, go for it. Like, why not? There's nothing wrong with having some shorter pieces up. Shorter pieces are more likely to be read from start to finish. So that also can be quite helpful. So yeah, I hope that answers that question. I wouldn't say like 2 sentences, but certainly I'd say 200 to 300 words would be the minimum that I would expect someone to write.
Yeah, I already said it once in a previous session. Nobody ever said, "Oh, dear God, this blog is way too short." So I think that can add to this. So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. The next question. Okay. Sorry, it moved up. So when reviewing finger on the pulse technologies, should they be opinions? And how do you write on a new technology which by definition is immature?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I have to say I can't really speak from experience because I haven't written any blog posts along this line yet. I can only talk about things that I've read. I would say that yes, they should be mostly opinion-based. Of course, you can talk about trends. If you've seen a lot of people tweeting or posting on LinkedIn or whatever about a topic or a new technology, take screenshots of them or link to them, embed them in your post, and show people, oh, everyone's talking about this. What do I think? Well, I think that this is going to happen and this is going to happen. Or I think this part of the technology is promising. This part, I'm not sure how they're going to solve X, Y, Z problem. You know, you can just explore it in that way. So absolutely, it should be opinion. It's kind of by nature, anything that is forward-looking kind of ends up being opinion, but nevertheless, putting some information, whatever data you have, be that just other people's opinions as well, is also, of course, nice to support your piece.
Well, if you are writing a blog or even on older technology, it's still opinion. So
exactly, true.
Is there any book about structure and style in writing?
Yes, there are a lot. Actually, when I first made this presentation, it was, I know you might struggle to believe this, it was much longer. And I had a few different things in there. There are different kinds of structure. For example, in journalism, they have what's called the pyramid structure, where you start with the most important piece of information, which is normally the smallest piece of information, and then you work your way down to the least important piece of information. That is very newsy. Yeah, if you think of any news piece you've read, most of the time, the first 2 paragraphs will contain all the information you need, right? And everything else is context. So that's one kind of form of structure. There's another form, which is more like the essay style, which tends to be more how I write and what most blog posts end up being, which is like an introduction, and then every single point under it supports the argument made in the introduction, and then the conclusion wraps it up. That's pretty standard. It's a really good way to go. And then, of course, there's story style, which is great for anecdotes, where you start with a little hook, then you build up to a point of conflict or a point of tension, and then you resolve it and kind of wrap it up, usually with a link back to the first hook. That's story structure. I would say that for each of these, there would be hundreds of books on each of those kind of structures existing. I don't have a particular favorite. It's actually been a long time since I studied journalism, so I don't have any of my old textbooks lying around anymore. But yeah, I will say there's plenty of information out there, so definitely get onto it. Maybe it's something I should write a blog post about. There you go.
Yeah, there was this question, a book that you recommend. So maybe after you write that, so just take a closer look on what Anna is writing, and you will find your answer. Not today, but let's say in 7 days.
Yeah, sure. Okay, no pressure.
Can it be a counter task for you?
No.
No pressure.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I'll do it. It's fine.
Regarding the slides, a few people also asked on a chat. Can you please share the slides? So maybe.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't have them. Like, I mean, I can share them later if that's okay. Or is
later? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know how to do it, so you'll just see me going like this, like a grandma kind of typing with one finger, trying to work out how to share them with you guys. But yes, I can do that for sure. No problems.
Who are your favorite bloggers?
Oh my gosh. I don't actually, you know what? I'm kind of one of these weird people. It's kind of like me and YouTube as well. I don't tend to follow like individual people. I tend to follow topics. So I honestly can't tell you because if I see a topic that is interesting, I don't care if it's someone's first blog post or if it's their 1,000th blog post, I'll read it. So I actually don't have any. I'm sorry. Myself, I guess. That's the self-promotion answer.
That's also opinion. Your one. Is it necessary to start a blog with some kind of story, or should you go straight to the point?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, this idea of like starting with an anecdote and then moving into things. I think stories, and especially like, you know, one or a few sentence stories, like 3 to 4 sentence stories, are a really good way of hooking people. One thing I didn't get to talk about today is this idea of hooks, which, you know, not in React, don't worry guys, but in blog posts, which is this idea of like trying to really get people invested in the topic before you talk about it. Personally, I love them. I think they're a really good way to get people interested in a way that isn't, I suppose, cerebral. You know, it's emotional. I think a lot of the topics that we talk about, we can get very in our heads, but sometimes things do have more emotional consequences. That said, if you're writing a tech tutorial, you don't really need to like write about, oh, I went to the water cooler and got a glass of water and I saw that Bob was having trouble with this topic in, you know, JavaScript. You know, you don't have to. As with anything, I think they're nice to have. I think if you have an anecdote or you have a story that can hook people, use it. If you don't try to create one out of nothing. It's fake and it comes across as in disingenuous. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, stick to things that are true and real and relevant.
Yeah, since you said you don't have favorite bloggers, and the next question is kind of, you already gave some intro to the next question. So you mentioned topics. What are your favorite topics then?
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, as I think Bruno, I think you know, I'm really interested in the more social topics. I suppose people call them soft skills. I hate the term soft skills. I call them interpersonal skills, how people actually work together. One thing that I'm super passionate about and really want to go into is project management from more of a people's perspective, maybe as a scrum master or something along those lines. And for me, that means making sure that people can work together. And I think a lot of the time what stops people from working well together is actually their own insecurities and their own fears. And I think overcoming those is the best way to help improve cohesion as a group and communication and coordination as a team. So for me, that's something I'm really passionate about. And a lot of my topics that, as I mentioned, are seemingly not tech related, actually, for me, they are, because it comes back to this idea of working together as a team, being able to communicate honestly, and that can only come from a place of comfort and security and open communication. So that's my favorite topic ever.
Yeah, and in those blog posts, you can actually learn a lot more. At least that's my opinion. So you can read many tech articles on how to set something X with Y and whatever. But if you read how someone is feeling about some topic or approaching some topic, then it can get a lot more details. Yeah. The next question is, as a native speaker, do you suggest us writing in plain English or use a more narrative speech?
Yeah, so I guess this is like formal versus casual kind of idea. Look, I think, again, it depends on the topic. I think if you're talking about yourself and your own story, you can probably talk more casually. I would say in most contexts, you can go more formal. And I think especially if you're just starting to write, I would stick to more formal rather than more casual, because there are a lot of intricacies to casual speech. One thing I didn't mention is I did used to teach some English online when I first moved to Germany. And I know all too well how casual speech can accidentally be rude or misread. There are lots of nuances to slang. So I would say if you're unsure, like if you've got a choice between two ways of phrasing things, I would say go with the more formal one. If you're super comfortable with English or you're super confident in the meaning of what you're saying, then you can obviously drop some casual things in. I like the occasional bit of casual language, like my booms and bada bings, and I like that stuff. Personally, I think it adds a bit of fun. But certainly, if you're writing about a formal topic, it's better to keep the language a bit more formal as well.
But you also have that advantage coming from Australia, so...
I do, yeah. I feel very lucky that I didn't have to learn English.
So what about the books that are you reading at the moment?
Yeah, I actually just got 3 delivered. But one of the ones I'm reading about, hang on, which is this one? This is a really interesting one. This is one I'm most excited about reading about. It's called Automating Inequality. And it's about like the ways in which, it's the byline is how high-tech tools profile, police, and punish the poor. So there you go. It's all about like the ways in which data and algorithms can accidentally, I suppose, discriminate, especially in financial contexts. And in policing as well, which I think is really interesting. I think there's a movement nowadays that is looking a lot more at where data is sourced from and its impact on society. It's this move away from viewing data as purely objective, and this acknowledgement that data is kind of infused with our own beliefs and biases based on how we've measured things, the times we've measured things. And I think that's a really interesting topic for me. So certainly that's something that I'm looking into a lot at the moment.
It is an intriguing title.
Yeah.
So 2 more questions. One is technical from the bootcamp, and second one is for you. And with this, we will close the Q&A. So if you use drafts as a to-do notes, how do you avoid polluting it with crazy idea you'll never write about?
Yeah, I mean, that is always a danger. I think you just have to be strict with yourself and occasionally go back in. I mean, I've had to do this where I go back and maybe the first topic I put in there, I keep avoiding writing about it. And after a while you go, look, I'm never going to write about this topic. I'll just delete it. So I think you just have to be honest with yourself, just like with a to-do list. If you have a to-do list and there's just this one thing and it's not urgent and you just always avoid it, you're just like, maybe I should just pretend it's not there after a while. That's my honest answer. It will happen. Of course it happens. You get this great idea in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my God, yeah, this would be great to blog about. And then you go on the next day and you're like, why would I? No.
And then you end up like those old people who are just collecting things and you never know when it's going.
Blog post hoarder.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, and there was this last one, which is, as I said, kind of more bootcamp oriented. How to know our remains blog task, probably remaining blog task. Well, I shared the link there with all tasks. I don't know if that answered the question. You should self-check what task did you and potentially reach out to have people, others from Hashnode who are checking this. So yeah, hopefully that answered the question. Couldn't really answer it from my perspective. So yeah, thanks, Anna. That was a really super powerful session, and we all learned a lot. Yeah, we will have a next session tomorrow. You already mentioned Kathleen Pitt, so we'll have a session with him.
Oh, great!
It will be Ask Me Anything session. So yeah, make sure that I don't know if you participate or but others make sure that you come. So you have an opportunity to ask him a lot of things. He is also pretty cool guy and did a lot, and also have a cool blog and a lot of blogging experience.
Yeah,
Anna knows him, and so yeah, that would be it for this session. Anna will share the slides. In that slide, you also have this task. So yeah, and that's it. See you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Bruno and Hashnode and everyone who attended today. I had a blast. I know that I threw a lot of information at you, but I really hope that you find it useful. And if you have any questions or feedback of any kind, please feel free to add me on Twitter, send me messages. You guys are great. Thank you.
Yeah, follow Anna. So see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.